You see, what I choose to believe about God and his right to reveal or not to reveal things makes all the difference in how I live. If you resent God because he has his secrets, you're not going to be a very faithful servant. But if you and I embrace the things we do know, which is plenty, and then the things we don't know, we recognize, God, I don't know why, but you're keeping this your secret, and because I trust you, I'm good with it. Don't like it, but I'm good with it. Many years ago, there was a high school student that was a pretty poor student. He was failing on a high school, just barely keeping himself in class. He came from a difficult home life where he didn't get a lot of help in just life in general. But he did have a mother that loved him very, very much. And as he got into his junior year of high school, his mom continued to push him and say, you really need to go to school. If you don't go to school, and learn some stuff and get into college, and you can't even get into college until you take one of those entrance tests, and take the SAT test. Y'all remember the SAT test? They still do the SAT test. Is that still a thing? I'm sure it's much easier today than it was in our day. Generational bitterness coming out here, right? I'm sure it's much easier. Well, this guy, to please his mother, says in his book, he tells the story how he says, okay, I decided out of obedience to my mom I would take this test just because she wanted me to, and I knew I wasn't going to do very well. And he goes, it was one of those ones where you have to mark the little bubble, and he goes, and I'd read the thing. If I didn't know, I'd guess. And he goes, sometimes I was making little patterns, like it's got to be just like this, it's got to go down. He goes, I was just, not trying. He goes, but I know I didn't do very well. He said, well, several weeks go by, and in the mail, this is back in the day when you didn't have computers, the results came in the mail. Some of us remember those days. And he said, I get this envelope in the mail from the SAT, and lo and behold, I get a 1480 out of 1600. It's a pretty good score, isn't it? And he goes, I'm reading this thing, and he goes, I'm going, whoa. So he goes, I go and show my mother, and he goes, what my mom's first thing to me was, did you cheat? You gotta love moms, don't you? Did you cheat? And he goes, I told her over and over, no, Mom, I didn't cheat. And she just kept shaking her head and goes, why? The second line the moms always say, I told you were always so smart. I told you. He goes, I went there and I thought about that, and he goes, man, I'm really smart. He goes, you know what I'm going to do when I go back for my senior year? He goes, I'm going to go to class. So he starts going to class, and he graduates with, not great, but he graduated pretty well, but that got him into a college, and he took some classes and got into publishing and became very, very financially successful in the publishing world. Well, he says in his book about 8-9 years after this event happens with his SAT test, he gets another letter in the mail from the SAT. And the SAT sends him this thing saying, we know it's been a long time, but we went on different systems and we realized that the year you took the SAT, we had 13 people that we sent the wrong scores to. Your score was actually a 700. Bummer. And yet here he is now, a massively successful businessman in the publishing world. He said in his book something that I found very fascinating that I want to close this with. He said, a lot of people think my whole life changed when I got the 1480. He said, that's not when my life really changed. He said, my life changed when I started acting like a 1480. He said, because what does a 1480 do? He goes to class. He finished his thought on this by saying this. He said, what I do, not how I feel about my past, but what I do is going to determine who I am in the future. You see, God has his secrets, and what if this guy would have known the secret 2 weeks after he got the first score? But the SAT, in all their brilliance, kept it a secret for him long enough for him to become a huge success. There's some things in your life that are just going to be secret. But what you and I do will determine whether we have regret or reward. But God has his secrets.